Hey there, you, me, and DC fans, and welcome if you are new. I am the stepson of Krypton,
And I'm Mantis.
and today we are talking more James Gunn, more Superman news. I know it seems like we're beating
Shocking.
this into the ground. We're beating a dead horse here, but there's a lot of information being released, as well as there's a lot of information being re-released and re-released and re-released that Mantis and I are like, we sit here and we do conference calls throughout the week after we record to discuss what we're going to do, and we're like, wow, they've just put out this big news, comic book news, site has just put out the same thing that we did a video on 3 weeks ago. Now, I'm not saying we're ahead of the curve. I'm just saying they keep putting out the same shit. So we have to
Yeah.
go through and filter that shit to bring you what we're going to talk about today. And that is the confirmation of where the Superman movie is going to be in the timeline. And now I know we touched on a little bit when we talked about what's canon and what's not, but this is actually confirmation from James Gunn. Mantis, are you ready to get on into the discussion?
Bang, bang.
He's frozen on my screen right now, so I'm going to assume that's a yes. You're still doing the band. Oh, that's you. Fuck you. Dude, don't do that shit. I don't know if you're fuck you. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get on into that discussion. Okay, guys, so James Gunn has finally gotten around to confirming where Superman's going to fit in the timeline. He's been busy, debunking a bunch of rumors and blocking a bunch of bullshit. So we now have actual confirmation of where everything's going to be placed. Mantis, do you want to lead off in that discussion?
Yes, this comes from the Direct, which I saw this on. I say we subscribe. We set up so we can kind of get some news articles here and there to kind of see if there's anything that new is dropping. As Khaled mentioned, it's frustrating because it feels like the last 3 weeks have all been stuff we've already done videos on. And this happened to be something that dropped that apparently wasn't. So, which again, we try to stick to the things that James Gunn is actually quoted as saying. So this is not fake news.
You are fake news.
And so, yeah, basically, there was a release that, or a Twitter social media post that James Gunn was talking about the DCU timeline involving Superman and Creature Commandos. As we've done several videos about, there's a couple of things in the works, docket, what have you, that
real quick, just sorry guys, ADHD kicking in here. So I have the article pulled up he's getting ready to reference. Is it just me, or does David Corenswet look like he's like 17? Like he looks like Superboy in this article.
he does. He looks young, or
He
maybe
looks
we're just
very,
getting
very
old,
young.
man.
I'm gonna have it
I
up
don't
there on the
know.
screen, but I'm sorry, I just pulled up the article because I like to follow along when he's talking about this, and I'm like, man, he looks really young. Sorry,
Yeah,
go on.
he's
ADHD kicking in.
yeah. And so what was it? Oh yeah, so Creature Commandos, Superman, and James Gunn, with the Superman making the first big screen movie. That obviously, as we know, it's the first movie that they're going to release in the DCU. There's also other ones we've previously talked about, such as Supergirl, and then some live action stuff as the Lanterns. However, the two that he kind of mentioned in this post was about Creature Commandos and Superman and where those fall on the quote-unquote timeline of the DCU. We've already talked about Elseworlds and all of that and how that's separate. This is the DCU and where it starts, prequels, where the main storyline is going to begin. And he's quoted as saying, or I guess the rumor teased that 2024's Creature Commandos would include a younger version of Nicholas Holt's Lex Luthor, who's confirmed to appear in Superman. However, when asked by a fan if this was true, Gunn, obviously we talk about Gunn, James Gunn just tends to just beat the shit out of these rumors. He's the debunker. He did it at, like you mentioned this before, he did it when he was working for Marvel Studios. He does it now when he's ahead of the DCU, so I'm here for it because more information is better than none. I get in the specifically in the news and the entertainment industry, less is more. You know, it's like the more vague you can be, the more excitement and mystery. It's this nonsense that women have about men as well. But it seems to be true in entertainment business as well. But James Gunn is here to put a stop to all that, because, as I said when asked by a fan about this, he noted the show will include plenty of fun appearances, not including Luther, before teasing that Creature Commandos takes place only months before the Superman film. So, and he's quoted as saying, here's the quote, "It's not true. Plenty of fun appearances in Creature Commandos, but no Lex, young or otherwise, and Creature Commandos happens only months before Superman." So, and as we were kind of discussing, maybe he's kind of using the maybe not direct link, but kind of in our Penguin reviews of the Penguin series on HBO. Check those videos out if you haven't yet; they're really good. But we discussed about how they're entwining the Penguin in between the Batman film and the second movie, and how that's happening. Seems like he's kind of going to approach similarly here with Creature Commandos and Superman, where why would you mention I guess is the question I'll ask is, why would you mention this at all? Or why would you mention the fact of when Creature Commandos takes place in reference to a movie if it doesn't have any impact on it?
Well, so the interesting thing with that is, we know that Grillo, however you want to say his fucking last name.
Yeah,
Sorry. Guerrilla,
we're bad
whatever.
names.
We know he is going to voice Rick Flag Sr. in Creature Commandos. We also know he is going to be in Peacemaker Season 2. We also know that he is going to be in the Superman movie. So it is interesting to find out that it takes place, like they take place very, very close to one another, because I was kind of wondering if, Creature Commandos was well before Suicide Squad, right? That was kind of like the first
Mm-hmm.
Suicide Squad way back in the day. And he's kind of, so I don't know if he's just bringing them up in the timeline of what we're used to from the comics and everything with them, or if he's bringing Superman and them back a little bit. You can do whatever the fuck you want, right? It's your universe, right? You're God here. You just create whatever you want. You can make anything canon. You can do whatever. But it is interesting because we know he is tied to all those projects. So he's going to be the voice of the animated. And then also we're going to see him in live action TV and movie. We know he's helping arrest Superman. So
We saw
now
pictures of that.
I will say this kind of as a tie-in. We were thinking about doing a separate video to it, but because we can't confirm any information, there was an article that and I messaged Mantis and I was like, let's jump on a call real quick. I want to talk about this. That had said that uh, Clayface is confirmed to be in Creature Commandos. James Gunn confirmed that. Thus far, that is not confirmed, at least that I can find. I've not found anything where James Gunn has said it. It's not listed on IMDb. And the thing was, this article, and it came from a pretty popular news source, and this is why we had talked about that in the beginning, was the popular news source says, oh, Alan Tudyk's going to voice Clayface. I'm like, well, in Creature Commandos, Alan Tudyk's already voicing Mr. or Dr. Phosphorus. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, Alan Tudyk does great voice acting work, so he could probably do both, but that's kind of weird.
Mm-hmm.
Because they were talking about the villain possibly him being in the Batman movie. Now, I think it'd be great if you did Clayface in the Batman movie, and I think because of how you're doing the Batman now, do it where he's more of the gangster makeup artist kind of thing like that instead of the weird creature monster. I think keep it more in reality, especially if you're going to do kind of a series that'll tie that in. I think that would be better. But we don't have confirmation. James Gunn has not confirmed that Alan Tudyk is going, or even Clayface is going to be in it, at least that I can find. If you know for sure you have that, let me know down in the comments, or let us know. I'd be interested to know, because I would be excited to see Clayface come into the Batman world or the Creature Commandos world. And when Mantis had just said, he said there's going to be several fun cameos, that would be kind of cool. Alan Tudyk is already voicing a character, and obviously Alan Tudyk is also slotted to be in the Superman movie. Don't know to what extent. but he is, credited to be in Superman movies. So I don't know that they're going to have him as Clayface as well.
And you just mentioned this. He did play quote unquote Clayface in the new animated Batman series,
there was a
right?
Harley Quinn like animated movie that he was
Oh,
series that
okay.
he had
Okay.
done.
So different.
Yeah, where
Okay.
he did voice Clayface. So it is kind of a, he's already played the character. Again, be cool, but you already have him cast as Dr. Phosphorus. So I don't know. Again, James Gunn has already said, and we've gone through it in many videos, that all the characters, if same thing with Rick Flag Sr. that we're talking about. If they're in the comics
Mm.
or if they're in the cartoons that they have and they're going to be in the live action shows, they will be the same characters in the movies. He's going to keep it all the
Hey,
same. So
maybe he's gonna play Steve the Pirate in Superman. We don't know.
that would be awesome. There's
Arr,
Superman's like, there's a
you're
guy in the Justice League dressed like a pirate.
There's a guy on our team dressed like a pirate.
I can totally see that. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Some little mention of that would be awesome.
That would be funny.
James Gunn to me is like a Seth MacFarlane. I feel like he gets the same kind of like humor that we do, and those little things. Like he's like, oh, I love dodgeball, or I love this. I'm gonna throw this in here as a little, like kind of you have to be familiar with that to catch it. So I could see something like that. That would be awesome, though. I would love that.
Oh yeah. So guys, let us know, like Khaled said, if you heard anything or you have a link to an actual reputable source on that info, let us know. But again, we don't like reporting fake news on this channel. We only steer towards actual quoted or reputable sources, which again, like you said, that one kind of threw me because was it the comic book news? Is that who it was?
Comicbookmovie.com. We've gone and gotten quite a bit of information because they get millions of hits, right? They're a trusted source. So it was kind of weird to see that without seeing a course, because a lot of times, like the similar one here we're talking about, like they'll even post the thread from James Gunn where he confirms or denies something. There was just no information other than him saying, oh yes, he's confirmed to play Clayface, and I couldn't find anything to confirm it. Again, I'm not saying they're lying or they're reporting fake news. They may have an inside track that I don't. I just, based off of what I know that Alan Tudyk's already scheduled to play, and the fact that I couldn't find a thread that James Gunn had said this, it just, again, we can't confirm it, so take it with a grain of salt. Right. Just watch the sodium.
But again, what this does kind of point to, again, as I mentioned previously, something that I'm really excited about is the fact that James Gunn is wanting to integrate the shows, the comics that are being released in DC, which may be a good or a bad thing, along with the movies and stuff on HBO, all in kind of the same timeline and universe. That's awesome. I mentioned, like, I didn't really care. It's kind of funny because I didn't really care for the way the MCU did it with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It was okay.
I liked Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I thought that was a great way to do that.
I don't mind the show. It didn't feel like it was in the same storyline and universe. And I guess maybe also too the fact that one of the main set pieces, we discussed this, I forget the name of the book that was in that showed up in the
Darkhold
Multiverse of Madness. The Darkhold was so far from that movie. Like, when that showed up in the series and when it showed up in Multiverse of Madness that's a long fucking time across there. I just keep coming back to the way they did the Batman and the Penguin. The movie ends and then you see the dams blown in the show. Like, they show it and the same character, the same villain is in there. It's just that type. If they're going to show that same amount of detail in the same way to integrate it, I'm all for that shit. I'm all for that.
I think the problem you run into is you're dealing with a show that has a TV show budget, where the Penguin series has an HBO Max budget, so damn near
That's
has
true.
movie level budget, right? But you're also dealing with a fantasy world like Agents of Shield. You can't get Chris Hemsworth and Chris Evans in them. I mean, it did have Nick Fury showed up in 2 episodes,
Couple,
Samuel
yeah.
L. Jackson, but like, and then Maria Hill,
Maria.
Colby Smulders, she shows up in several episodes. But like, you're not gonna have all of these big actors kind of crossing over into your show. And also, you can't have the fantastic budgets like the way they do the Darkhold, and even Ghost Rider comes in there. I feel like they did a decent job for the budget you're going to have for a network type TV show.
That's
Whereas
true, yeah.
Penguin is based out of Batman, which was very grounded in reality, right? It wasn't this gods and all these, other beings and all that stuff. It was very, very real city. It's just a bleak, dark city. And then when the Penguin series starts up, it's all about the gangster and the underworld and all that stuff. So it's very easy, again, also having a really high budget and great writers, but it was very easy to make that series like where you could really focus on the depth of the characters and all that. Versus Agents of Shield, you're trying to like still tie it to the movies. Like at the end of season 2, I think, are there when they're like, oh, we gotta, or it's in the middle of season 2, they're like, we gotta call in the Avengers, and then that's when Avengers Age of Ultron happens. It's hard to tie those two together.
I mean,
when you're on a lower
yeah,
budget.
I get it. I mean, I get there's a reason for it. I'm just saying I like that better. Now, again, Creature Commandos is animated, right?
Yes.
So, like, it's not even the same thing. You know what I mean? Like, it's not.
Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say it's not the same. Like, because it's animated, the whole feeling connecting it to Superman may be. I feel like it may be a little bit harder to do. And not necessarily like, oh, we can't pull this off because we can't do anything we want. It's animated. You could draw whatever you want, animate anything. Like, a budget's not an issue here. I think the believability in making people feel like they went from this storyline to this storyline and it connects in a real way, it makes you feel that it is the same thing, is difficult to do between animation and live action.
Well, here's the thing. We're going to get to see if it works, because that I know of, guys, and let me know down in the comments. I'm not claiming that I know everything, but I don't know. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. Is that this is the first time that I know of in comic book movie showish that we have an animated series that's going to have the character voice that's going to immediately go into live action of that same character. So, I mean, Rick Flag Sr. is going to be voiced by the guy who, in a few months later, you're going to see him in the movie playing the same character. So that's going to be kind of interesting, right? Because not only are you taking stories from an animated movie or animated show that's happening relatively close to when this movie is going to release, a couple of the characters are going to come out of that into, because even Amanda Waller and John Economos and them from Peacemaker, they're going to be in the Peacemaker show. So that's going to be an interesting one to see if they pull off. It's going to take some work to make sure that's done well.
Yeah. And, let us know down in the comments what you think. Do you think this is going to do you think he's going to do that? Do you think it's going to be leadings directly into Superman? Do you think it's going to be its own story? Or is it going to be like bits and pieces of it kind of show up in Superman, and or vice versa? Maybe someone, that shows up late in Superman was in Creature Commandos. There's all types of ways they could do it. Or maybe they won't do anything. Maybe it has nothing to do with it. It's literally, he said this happens then and this happens right after. But other than, like you mentioned, Rick Flag Sr. being the same character, that's literally the only tie between them. Who knows? But let us know what you think.
Well, and
is it
also,
going to work?
Because we're discussing the timeline, we got a little bit of time before we go too crazy on it, is James Gunn did also say that Kyle Chandler playing Hal Jordan is going to be a one and done, right? Now, I don't know if that means that he's going to be Hal Jordan training Jon Stewart, and then we're going to see him go to Parallax. We don't know, like, is he going to be, is this the point where they're already past all that, where he gets basically dismissed from the Corps? Or is it going to be like we discussed with our Penguin wrap-up? Go watch that if you haven't seen it, where we talk about, the there's a lot of speculation, and we believe that the Penguin's going to be a one and done, right? They're going to use this to bridge between the second movie, and then they may do another mini series to bridge between the third movie. Is the Lanterns going to do that, right? Because we're thinking Lanterns and Paradise Lost are going to be these like epic series that are going to run for 2 or 3 seasons, which in Netflixy, Hulu type of
Yeah.
HBO Max realm, that's 6-8 years, right? To get 3 seasons out and be working on a 4th, or is it just going to be mini series that are going to help fill in the stories of these characters that he doesn't want to take time to kind of explain to you, because you're not going to be able to explain Green Lantern in a movie and not have a villain and things like that. Yeah, just like we saw, we know Mantis hates that, but if you look at the Green Lantern movie from 2011, he's got a point, right? I mean, you get it, right? There's just too much going on. So
there's too much to explain. You can't do it in a movie. I hate when they try.
Now,
and again, I hate. Yeah.
Real quick, I'd like to point out that if you watch the original Superman movie, 1978, with Christopher Reeve in it, you don't find out who the villain is until like an hour into that movie, right? Like, true. I mean, you're 40 minutes in and you're still kind of learning Clark's backstory and all this other stuff. It's about an hour or so before you see Lex, right? So that's a lengthy time before you have origin story before you get into the villain, and it still worked.
Yeah, and again, awesome. The way that they did the Penguin, using that as I mean, you got a little glimpse of him in the Batman, but using the series to explain his origin story and not have to put it in the movie is chef's kiss. Like you said, I do not like origin stories in movies. The best way to do it, and even based off of what we've seen, is the way that the Elseworlds did it with Penguin. That if you're going to do it, put it in a series, animated or not, explain it that way. And I know it sucks because, like, if you just want to watch the movie and see it and know what happens instead of having to buy HBO Max for a month to watch all the episodes, like, I don't give a shit. I'd rather have it that way because it does it justice. What I don't want is it crammed into the first 45 minutes of the movie, and then instead of having a great movie, you have an okay movie because they had to do all this other crap at the beginning that they just half-assed to fit it in there, right? That's what I don't want.
Well, if you think about Penguin, real quick, guys, this could be final thoughts because this isn't supposed to be a Penguin wrap-up. We already did that. But they took this series and they made you like the character, and then they did this roller coaster and they show you how he becomes a villain, right? Actual, like a villain, a Batman style villain. Because in the beginning, we kind of, even in the Batman, you don't really think of him as much, and then you kind of feel sorry for him in the beginning, and then they make him villain. So that's a great way to foreshadow the character in whatever movie, then show his origins and how he becomes the super villain, and then have Batman go fight him. But it still is going to make sense to where you don't need to know that, right? Like with these villains and things like that, if it is going to be Penguin, you don't really need the origin story to watch the movie and enjoy it. It's still going to work, I believe. It's just you can get an origin and you can fill in the backstory. If they ever decide to keep selling Blu-rays.
Yeah, it's like you said with the original Superman movie. Like they didn't even introduce Lex until almost halfway through the movie. Like, and it was fine. Like, okay, he's a bad guy. He's a genius. He's just trying to steal money and do okay, I get it. We don't need to expand on it. It can just be that simple and it'd be okay. And then, if you wanted to, like you said, like the Penguin, if you started watching, because we know the Penguin's going to be in the second movie, right?
Yes.
If you don't want to watch the series, you don't have to. You can just pick it up and he's a gangster, ex-gangster. He's a bad guy. It's easily to follow. Like, it's fine. But if you want that additional backstory, you can get it. And there might be Easter eggs, like you were saying. Like, who knows what's going to be in Superman? Who knows what they're going to introduce in Creature Commandos? It could be some bad guy they're introducing in that shows up. I mean, we don't know. So, yeah,
we don't know. But James Gunn has teased that sometime between now and either it's going to happen around the holidays, or Mantis and I were discussing around Super Bowl time. We're going to get the trailer. He already has it on his laptop. It's locked and loaded, apparently ready to go. He's just kind of just building the dramatic suspense of when he's going to release the Superman trailer. We're ready for it. We're going to try to get that video out as fast as is humanly possible of our reaction to it. And I promise, guys, we will keep it shorter than the Deadpool one, because that was a 50-minute after I cut everything down, 50-minute video, and most of you didn't watch. Understandable. I get it. But we did break down a lot of Easter eggs and such that it turns out a lot of people just, we're like, I'll just watch it and find out. So we will bring a much more condensed version, but we are going to do a reaction / kind of discussion, Easter eggs and all that to the Superman trailer when it drops, because we're all waiting for it. So, Mantis, do you have anything else?
I do not.
All right, guys, keep this under a half hour here. If you have made it with us this far, we definitely appreciate it. Consider giving the video a like. He's showing you where. Up on the little pulpit there. Consider subscribing to the channel. If you already hit the like button, you might as well subscribe. We've got a lot more videos coming out, and unless we get information otherwise, we are going to dial back how much content we are bombarding you guys with, because we don't want to bring out all this repeat news like all these other news organizations that we follow are. We just want to bring out the information as we get it that seems relevant. So if you're subscribed and you have the little fucking bell notification clicked, you will get alerted to when we release new videos. And definitely comment. Let us know how you're feeling about it now that we have kind of more information about what's going to be canon, because apparently the only thing that's not canon from Peacemaker is going to be the last episode when we see the Justice League now. We do have a whole video on what's canon and what's fodder. Definitely go check that out. And again, if you're going to do all that, you might as well be subscribed. Okay, we do you the favor of not putting it in the beginning, right? Because for any of you who are still watching, we put it at the end. So I feel like it's an even trade, right? You got a half hour's worth of content, good video here, and you just click the little like and subscribe button, right? Man,
we appreciate it.
We work out it. We do appreciate all of our subscribers, both those who have been with us since the very beginning and our newest. You guys are the reason we do this channel. We don't do it to make money. So, with that, Mantis. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us here on this episode of You, Me, and DC. Until next time, we will see you then.
Later.